Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm Madison Niceley, Customer Marketing Manager here at Bloomfire, and I'm joined today by Jason Pafford, our Senior Enterprise Customer Success Manager. Jason works directly with our enterprise customers, helping them to roll out new capabilities and strategizing how to best share these strategies with their teams and ensure strong adoption. Lately, a huge part of that has been our conversational AI Synapse. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we do get started. This session is being recorded, so you'll get an on-demand link shortly after we wrap. Feel free to share it with your team and anyone else you feel would benefit from this session. Please drop any questions into our Q&A chat as we go. We'll leave time at the end to discuss and answer those questions. Today, we're talking about Synapse, so Bloomfire's AI layer that sits right on top of your community's content. If you've been using Bloomfire for a while, you already know the value of having a single trusted home for your organization's knowledge. Synapse takes that a step further. So instead of just helping people find content, it truly helps them get those answers in that are grounded entirely in the content your organization has already vetted and trusted and know it's to date. Our goal with our time today is to give you a practical understanding of Synapse. So again, what it is, what makes it meaningfully different from other AI tools you're probably already fielding questions about, what it looks like in action, and perhaps most importantly, how to know that it's working once you've rolled it out across your organization. We'll move through this in 5 different parts. So what Synapse is, what sets it apart, a live look at the different ways to use it, the metrics worth tracking once it is live, and finally, best practices. So Jason has a recent customer story he'll also share with us, and overall just what drives that strong lasting adoption. And whether you're already live with Synapse or starting to explore it for your team, there's something here all of you will take away at the end of the session. So Jason, let's start at the beginning. When a customer asks you, what exactly is Synapse? What's your answer? How do you explain that to them?
Yeah, I always look to keep it pretty simple. So Synapse is Bloomfire's AI-powered answer engine. So it's built right into the platform, goes beyond our basic search. So you have a search bar that gives you a list of documents and it asks you to do the reading. Synapse retrieves the relevant content, reasons across it, and then synthesizes an answer for you in plain language with the sources cited right there so you can go and verify it. So it really is accurate AI answers faster, and that's our promise. Instead of somebody digging through folders or chat threads or old email attachments, they can ask a question in natural language and Synapse pulls together an answer from across your community's content, whether that's spread across multiple categories or groups.
And I think that's an important distinction, right? Because everyone's employees are already using ChatGPT or some other general AI tool on the side. Synapse isn't pulling from the open internet. It's working entirely within your Bloomfire content, what you choose to put into your communities.
Exactly. And that's really the piece that gets people leaning forward once it clicks with them. So Synapse only knows what your organization has put into Bloomfire. So I know you've spent time building out policies and product documentation and case studies, training materials, whatever it is. Synapse is reasoning over that curated body of knowledge and not somebody's blog post from 5 years ago. So it's a completely different trust profile than a generic AI assistant would be.
And I'd love to build on that too, Jason, a bit, just because I think this is a question everyone is really interested in and maybe here for specifically, but what actually makes Synapse different from those other AI tools that people already have access to that we see are very prevalent in the market today?
And I think it's really kind of around three things that kind of all support and reinforce each other. The first one's that curated clean content. So Synapse or any AI is only as good as what it's reasoning over. Because Synapse lives inside Bloomfire, it's drawing from the content that your organization has already reviewed, approved, and kept current. So similar to what you just alluded to, you're not getting an answer stitched together from a random forum post, a 5-year-old PDF, and other things out on the web. You're getting an answer that's built from your curated source of truth. With the second things, it's permission based, and that's really a big one for our enterprise customers, especially. So, broad numbers of departments and teams. Synapse respects that exact same permission structure that you've already built into Bloomfire. So if somebody doesn't have access to a particular group or a document, Synapse isn't going to surface information from in an answer for them either. So you're not opening up some new separate access risk just because you're turning on an AI feature. The governance that you already trust extends automatically to this tool. And then third, because of those groups, it can be focused by group. So each community or group Synapse experience is scoped to that group's content. So you can focus in your Synapse answer on a particular group. So a question asked inside a specific group is going to pull from and reason over that group's world of content and not blend in unrelated content from somewhere else in the organization. And that's what keeps answers really relevant instead of generic. And it's part of why people trust the answers or the content that they receive from Synapse.
Yeah, and that combination really is really the differentiator, right? It's AI that answers questions using only the content you'd actually want it to, and also respecting who's allowed to see what, and just staying scoped within the right audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to add, like, Synapse still wants you to verify. We're all about a source of truth. Every answer that Synapse is going to provide you comes back with citations, with footnotes pointing to the specific passage that it pulled from, a link straight to the source posts that were used. So AI generated answers in general are a starting point, and they're not always a final authority, especially for anything client facing that's highly regulated or confidential. We've baked that verification loop into the experience and not left it as an afterthought.
And I think at this point, like, I'd love for the audience to see this in action, Jason. So I know you have a few different modes to walk us through. If you want to go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to get everything pulled up here. So inside Synapse, you're going to see 3 ways to really get at your content. And choosing the right one for what you're trying to do really does shape the kind of answer that you receive. So I'm going to run through kind of all 3 live so you can see exactly what the experience feels like. And I'm going to kick off with intelligent search. So that's your familiar traditional keyword and semantic blended search. If you already know roughly what document you're looking for, and you really just want to browse a list of results yourself, search is still right there for you. So right up here at the top, and what you get back is exactly what you'd expect from search anywhere else. So you're going to receive that list of posts and series that are relevant to what you've searched for. But if your search contains enough information or intent direction, Synapse, as you see here, works in parallel with search to provide you with a quick answer. And so this is a verified knowledge from AI. You'll notice our footnotes here, the source citations. We've got copy paste feedback loops. And of course, you can ask a follow-up as well. So this is that kind of reinforcement of verifying your knowledge. We explicitly call it out. You always want to confirm for accuracy, no matter what AI tool you're using. So next, I kind of want to move into the full page chat experience, which is something that we're used to using those other tools all the time, and point out the kind of 2 modes that we have here. So the first one we're going to do is fast mode. We're going to dive into thinking mode in a moment here. So fast mode is something that you want to use when you kind of already know what you're looking for. Something very specific, something very quick. So I'm going to say, what's the phone number for the 24/7 fraud hotline? What fast mode is going to do is quickly find the most relevant pieces of content, pull the answer straight out of it, and hand it to you in a concise way. So you can see here, we've got that provided with our footnotes and citations and our sources available to us right there. And I kind of want to show you one more of those examples. So let me just grab it. I didn't want you guys to suffer through my typing, so I've got everything ready to copy and paste. So we're going to say, what's the per transaction Zelle limit for a standard checking member? So same thing is going to happen here. It goes and it finds that exact process document. It's going to give me that information directly cited. And if I would need to ask more information, like maybe I want some more details, you can continue that. You can simply ask another question, and Synapse keeps that context of our conversation in mind as it answers those additional questions. So you can have a full-on conversation and really dive deep into details. So this one, we had standard checking members, but what about premium checking members? What's different there? So it gives us a chance to continually have a conversation and dive as deep as we want. I love a whole lot of things about Synapse. But with AI everywhere, for me, the most important fact is that it's answering only from your curated content, and it's honoring any permissions that you have set in the platform. So if you would ask an odd question, something that you have just made up out of nowhere, Synapse, unlike other tools, I won't name any names, those other tools, they'll always give you an answer, and they'll sound really convincing. Synapse isn't designed to do that. So if it does pull up an answer for you around something, you can see that we actually have some content about a rainbow in here. I didn't expect that to pop up for us, but notice that it says, hey, it doesn't tell me what a rainbow is. So Synapse is going to be very explicit and let you know what it doesn't know. So those are the things that I kind of love about Synapse, and that's one of my favorite pieces. So I want to dive into the part that's kind of like super interesting to me, and that's thinking mode. Thinking mode is something that you're going to use when you have just much more complex open-ended questions. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's going to reason across a lot of sources instead of just a few. So this is really broad stuff. This is where you want to put really complicated multi-part questions. For my folks that are in research and insights, a lot of things that you're doing that are doing broad analysis, thinking mode is really where you want to build that. So I've gone out and I've asked a more complicated question, and you'll notice that Synapse is providing me a much more detailed answer than it would have in quick mode. Instead of one paragraph, it's giving me step-by-step instructions of how to handle this claim. I've got all of my footnotes and citations and my source right here as well. So everything is cited, sources quickly accessible for you. Just a great way to make sure that you're always sharing the correct and proper information with whoever's on the other end of your conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's worth calling out here too, because we see this trip people up quite a bit, is that how you phrase the question is very important. Like Jason mentioned, it really does matter. So a vague prompt like, tell me about our policy changes, might come back thin or even empty, because Synapse can't tell what you actually mean. Whereas if you get specific, name the actual policy, the actual time frame, ask for it in a table, Synapse will go and build you that full structured answer. So it rewards specificity the same way a really good analyst, if you would give them a very clear brief of what you were looking for versus a more vague one.
I'm impressed with specificity. I always have trouble saying that one, so awesome job there. But you're exactly right. It's the single biggest driver of a good first impression with Synapse. So we always like to tell customers, think of your prompt as really, it's the start of a conversation. It's not a keyword search. So the more context that you give, the more it has to work with. And so, I mean, we see these real patterns all the time. Somebody will ask, what are our onboarding requirements? And they'll get something minimal back, but Synapse doesn't know, which onboarding for which role or in what region or what time frame. But if they're more specific and provide context, like, what are the onboarding requirements for a new sales hire in the EMEA region, and how do those differ from the US process? That's specific enough for thinking mode to go pull from multiple posts and actually build a real comparison out for you. So it's the same underlying question, but a completely different result just because of how it was framed. And kind of bringing it back together, you know, intelligent search when you want to browse it yourself and be supported by Synapse. Fast mode when you know exactly what you mean, you really want it quickly. Thinking mode when the question is more complex or around some highly regulated procedure. With a lot of my customers, like in the insurance industry, things like that, it's so highly regulated that it's always better to use thinking mode and get really thorough analysis there.
Okay, so people are using it, people are using Synapse, but how do you actually know if it's working? What sort of metrics should customers be actively tracking?
Absolutely. I get that question a lot. Once Synapse Live is live for a customer and they've got things going. So it's a pretty consistent list. I mean, first, it's just your basic usage, like how many questions are being run through the tool, how many unique users are utilizing Synapse, and look at that kind of week over week. And that really tells you if it's catching on with your organization. Second, I always like to look at what's our answer rate overall. So are end users getting the content that they need? And if they're not, let's dive into the questions to understand where the gaps are. Maybe it's a bad prompt and we can solve that with training for our end users. Or it may be missing content. And so we've identified a knowledge gap. So with just a bit of analysis, you can really learn a lot about your end users, your content health, and much more just by investigating the data that's available. And I think one thing never to forget, don't overlook your internal metrics. Those really can show the benefit of the tool, like things like call deflection to your IT help desk because your associates could self-serve and solve their own problems. So you're saving time on your IT team, and agents are getting back to what they need to be doing more quickly that way.
Yeah, I love that second one. In my brain, it flips the no answer from a failure into more of a to-do list. So instead of treating a thin result as almost a strike against the tool that you're using, you get a running ranked view of exactly where your knowledge base needs the attention. So honestly, more useful than most manual content audits, since it's based on what people are actually asking rather than what a content owner is just assuming they need. So for teams trying to justify time spent on content upkeep, it's a pretty compelling story to bring to one of your stakeholders.
Absolutely. And it's one of those kind of underused things that customers have easy access to. And there's just a treasure trove of information there that helps you build things throughout your organization in a much more concise and good way. So
100%. So Jason, let's close with this. For someone rolling out Synapse right now or thinking about expanding it, what do you tell them to actually drive that strong adoption and engagement?
yeah, I've got kind of a few things that I lean on every time. So start with clean content. So before you lean hard into Synapse with a group, take a pass through what's actually in your platform. Archive what's inaccurate and out of date, or fix what's outdated. Make sure that the good stuff is actually tagged and organized for your team. So Synapse ends up being a kind of mirror that reflects the quality of what you give it. So a little cleanup up front pays off in every answer afterward. Another thing, you pick a high value use case first. So you don't have to launch Synapse everywhere all at once. Find a group or a team with the most repetitive questions. So like a support team, or maybe it's an onboarding process, a sales enablement group, things like that. Improve the value there first. Provide you with a real learning experience that's going to pay off when you roll things out much more broadly. Teach people how to write a good prompt. And that sounds more complicated than it actually is, but might be the single highest leverage thing that you can do. So even a short training, 5 minutes on being specific, naming the thing, the time frame, the comparison you want, giving that context that's so important to both interacting with AI and interacting with people, that will change the entire first impression that people get. Another thing, build that verification habit early. So make sure that it's like normal and not optional for people to click through and check sources, especially anywhere that's client facing or it's sensitive. That habit really protects trust in the tool long term. And then lastly, I think if find your champions. I mean, there are going to be people that love this and are early adopters. Every successful rollout that I've been part of has had a person or two who got genuinely excited early on and started telling their story to the team. And that kind of peer-to-peer advocacy does more than any of your announcement emails ever will. So one of my favorite stories from a customer that's in the banking industry, their executive assistant to the CEO was an early bird, much like myself. And so she'd go into the office early in the morning and often receive like incidental calls from customers that were asking detailed questions about their account that she couldn't answer. And so she would take a message and she's going to pass that over to the support team to call the customer back. But with access to Synapse, she was able to confidently answer the customer's question with vetted knowledge from their Bloomfire instance. So she was delighted, the customer was delighted. So she had access to the information she needed when she needed it, knew that it was trustworthy and vetted. And then the customer had a great experience. They got first contact resolution. They didn't have to wait for somebody to call them back. So just a win all the way around on that.
Yeah, that's such a great story. It really brings just the tool to life, everything that we've been saying, everything that we've been talking about. I think it paints that picture perfectly. And I think that's a perfect segue into our Q&A. Know you guys have been very active in the chat, so would love to get to as many questions as we can with the remaining time. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions that you all have submitted. And let's start with, which mode would you use if you weren't sure yet whether your question had a simple answer or a more complex one?
I think I would start with intelligent search that's supported by Synapse. And so that way you're kind of getting the best of all worlds. So if the Synapse answer comes back thin, or you can tell there's more nuance, you can either dive into thinking mode with a follow-up question, or you can go directly to the document that's served up by intelligent search. So Synapse is also available to you on every single post. So over time, you kind of start to get a feel for which questions are going to be quick questions and which ones are really asking for a deeper analysis or detailed procedures.
And then next one, before you share a Synapse answer with a client or with leadership, what's the right way to double check it?
Oh, always click through your citations to the original source post, read the context, not just the highlighted passage. So particularly for me, for anything that's client facing, that's confidential, compensation related, especially, treat the AI answer as a draft and confirm that against the source before it goes anywhere external.
And then, let's see, last one. Does everyone does everyone across your organization see the same results back, or does it depend on what they personally have access to?
Absolutely depends on their existing permissions. So Synapse is only going to surface content that a person already has access to in the community. So there's no separate access layer to manage. There's no risk of somebody seeing something through Synapse that they couldn't already see browsing in the community directly. And then for those of us that are community admins, this is really a great thing to keep in mind for us. So if we're doing any testing or vetting on our side, we have to remember our answers, because we have broad permissions, are going to be different than those for someone with limited access.
Yeah, perfect answer. Thank you, Jason. Or answers, plural. Thank you for all your engagement today and for asking those questions, everyone. For any we were not able to answer, we will follow up over email. And even if other questions, once we're off this call, questions come up later on, you know how to reach us, either your CSM or your account executive as well. We're all happy to answer and talk through anything. So to recap, Synapse is Bloomfire's AI-powered answer engine. It retrieves, reasons, and synthesizes answers from your trusted, curated content. Again, not the open web. What makes it different is that combination of clean content, permission-based access, and group level focus, all backed by those citations. So people can verify before they share or they act on those answers. And then we walk through the 3 ways to interact with it. So that's search, quick mode, and thinking mode, and how the way that you phrase a question shapes your answer or the answer that you get back. And then we covered the metrics that show whether adoption is working. So usage, prompt review, and user feedback.
It's at the end of the day, the customers I see that get the most out of Synapse are the ones that treat it the same way they treat any high value tool. So you invest a little bit in clean content, a little bit in training people to ask good questions with context, and then let your own champions do some of the storytelling for you. And I think when you do that, Synapse stops being a feature that people try once and move back to old habits and starts being really how people actually get their answers.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself, Jason. And like I mentioned, if we didn't get to your answer live today, we'll follow up directly by email. And if today sparked any ideas about where Synapse could make the biggest difference for your team, we would love to help you think through that and help you plan what a rollout would look like for your team. So thank you, Jason, for walking us through all of this. And thank you all so much for spending time with us today and the thoughtful discussion and questions. You will receive the full recording in your inbox shortly, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.